Welcome to Basically Sci-Fi, the short storytelling podcast where we tell stories you can basically call sci-fi. I'm Jared.
I'm Todd.
And I'm Adam.
And today we have a story from me, my second to last story, I think.
Oh.
Ooh.
Alright, well, I guess I'll get right into it.
Nice.
This episode is called Star Trek IV: The Voyage Home.
Great. I haven't seen that one.
Brando stirred from his long sleep. The last couple of days had been more excitement than he had expected, but it was, he felt, just what he had needed. Work with the council had been dull. Meetings, public events that were more for show than anything, and council sessions that were a little more than an excuse for the sleeper counselors to pat themselves on the back and for Blinkus and Ted to mock them for it. The week of drinking and bombing around in a workshop had been a relief, as well as a kind of a moment of awakening. It was time, he had decided, to leave the political life. What was next was still undecided, but anything had to be better than this drudgery. Before he could think on it more, he was interrupted by Blinkus screaming at the top of her lungs from what served as a cockpit in the ship. He hurried over to her to see what was the matter, and asked as much. What? Oh, nothing. I was just waking up. Why? Something wrong? Blinkus asked in response. Oh, no, the screaming just startled me, Brando said, no less worried, but now confused as well. Nothing's more terrifying than waking up and realizing it hasn't all been a dream, Blinkus said nonchalantly.
Oh, God.
She went on. It's been that way ever since we left Alabith. I'm good for about a week at a time, or until I really tie one on. Honestly, I'd be surprised if it wasn't the case for most of us that manned the crew. I mean, really, we've gone through a fucked up mess over the last 20-odd years. Brando thought about this more than he cared to. He knew she was right, after all. Do you ever wish you'd gone with Plum and the kids? He managed to ask after a minute. Sometimes, she said, unsure where he was going with this. More so when they woke up my parents, and I put it together that they're now only 5 years older than me. Yeah, but I'm over it. I think I'm gonna... Brando was interrupted again, but this time by the group returning from the beacon. They filed in one at a time, each with their own set of concerns written on their faces. Glorda was scheming plans to convince Jean of their worthiness. Jean was wondering what would happen if he had to tell these people no. Ted wondering if she was trying too hard. Frunga wondering if she was playing it too casual. And Randall considering what all of this would mean for him. Brando greeted them. Well, what have we here? Blinkus answered. Bunch of drunken idiots and some guy dressed up as Roger by the looks of them. Oh, be nice, Blinky. This is Gene. He's gonna be judging our civilization's value to the greater galaxy. And he is Roger's brother, Ted said, relieved that the fears of her sister's entanglement with Brando were unfounded. She should have known they were just as nervous and awkward as her. Well, that should be easy enough. We are mostly a bunch of vapid idiots with a few folks who keep everyone else in line, Blinkus said, not really considering the possible consequences of those words. Brando ended her postulating by saying, I think what Blinky meant to say was, nice to meet you. Though she wasn't wrong, but really, why must we prove ourselves? We made it this far without needing anyone's approval. Well, Galaxy had its issues with violent species, notably from planets like this one. As the helper of all peoples, we consider it our duty to stop potential wars before they start, Jean explained, and something of a mantra the helpers were all taught from a young age. We met plenty of asshole races in our voyage here, though, Blinkus broke back in. There were those people who abandoned a disturbed and hungry member of their society on an inhabited planet by himself, and the space cops who tried to wipe us out for breathing oxygen. I'm sure those were just misunderstandings. Or an overzealous faction trying to keep themselves safe, Jean said, surprised at how effectively this one had cut to the core of concerns of the maker's policies. So you're saying this probably won't be too difficult then? Alright, well, that might be presuming a bit, but if you came from another world in this galaxy, then you likely already have been assessed So, no, I don't think it will be too difficult, Jean said, wondering if this was the correct way to approach such matters, and suddenly wishing he'd been given any training whatsoever on what to do with this situation.
I often feel that way in my job.
It was a long trip to the capital for Jean. Glorda spent most of the voyage lobbying for her people, in spite of Jean reminding her at regular intervals that he understood all she had told him, and further action on the situation would only come with inspection of the people themselves. Frunga, watching this happen, became even more frustrated than Jean. Eventually she interrupted Glorda in the midst of waxing poetic about the prolific arts community in the capital with a, "Ha! Did you see the most recent performance put on at the music hall? The songs were all about how harrowing the trip was, and it was all performed and watched entirely by sleepers. They've spent the last year patting each other on the back for being unconscious for 15 years. Oh, come on, Frunga. You could try and be helpful at least, Glorda almost shouted before Randall walked up and attempted to calm her down, which only succeeded in diverting her attention to a new target. Oh, what do you care? Glorda turned on Randall. I mean, I do have some stake in this. I am dead after all, Randall answered honestly. Wait, you're one of the dead? Jean asked with sincere surprise. Well, yeah, didn't we tell you that? I think I remember telling you that. I don't know. Randall was confused now. No, how can I see you? Dead are only supposed to be visible to their loved ones. This isn't right. I made a transmitter to pick up and project his form, Frunga interjected. That shouldn't be possible. How did you do it? Frunga explained the scientific specifics, which I won't because they're boring and I didn't want to think too hard about it. And showed him the transmitter. Jean gawked, not understanding any of it. He was no scientist, he thought to himself, but usually he could follow along and at least understand core concepts. But this was nothing he had ever heard of. Where did you learn this stuff? The Maker's Science Academy can't even project the dead. There's nothing too difficult. Maybe my dimension's science is beyond yours, Frunga suggested. Now there's a reason to help us. I can talk with your scientists and maybe teach them a thing or two. This was undoubtedly appealing to Jean. The idea that another dimension could have surpassed this one was shocking to his worldview, if that's the right phrase for interstellar species like the Makers. Brando landed the workshop a bit outside of the capital city center. Really, it was the only place to reasonably land a whole building, even if it was in the middle of a public park. But he figured if they didn't want people to land there, then they wouldn't call it a park.
That's clever. That's clever.
The group made their way towards the city center and the council chambers, figuring the rest of the councilors would still be frantically trying to either find their 4 members who had gone missing or finding candidates to replace them. Glorda spent the entirety of the walk explaining how the city had come together, its attractions, housing markets, low crime rates, entertainment districts, red light districts, assorted bakeries, and scientific labs. Jean was happy to engage with this, questioning the rates at which people had adapted to waking up from extended periods of cryosleep and what therapy they had set up to readjust when he could get a word in. Where does all the manufacturing take place? Jean asked her. Oh, it's all made at the science labs, or by the butlers in their palaces, Blinkus said offhandedly, garnering a collective wince from her fellow Albifans as they considered the possibilities of Jean meeting the butlers. Fortunately, they rounded a corner just then and came to the council chambers, providing a distraction for Glorda. They entered the main chamber where most of the councilors sat staring into space. None of them looked up at the sound of the entering visitors. Glorda cleared her throat and said, Hey folks, we're back. There was a murmur of recognition among the blank stares until one of the counselors happened to look up. Holy shit, is that Roger? Joe said, one of the few Fibulans that had come on the voyage. He was never that interested in the cult he was a part of, but had kept the name because it threw people off balance. They were never quite sure how to deal with cultists. Still, seeing Roger thousands of light years in a dimension away from his homeworld threw him for a loop. No, Oh no, Glorda comforted the shaking man. This is Gene. He's Roger's brother. This just about failed to calm the Joe, but it did muster the attention of the other counselors. Most of them even bothered to look up at the looming figure, slightly slouched and looking them all over. Why is everyone so bored looking? Gene asked Glorda. I don't know. What's going on, Joe? She asked, confused herself. This should have been the most work any of them had ever had to put into this job, and yet they were all just sitting there, doing nothing. Well, we didn't really know what to do. You're the one with all the ideas, Glorda, Joe said without looking away from Jean. Seriously? Ted almost shouted. You idiots have just been sitting there for almost a week? To be fair, it is what we would have done too, Blinkus said quietly to her. Yeah, but we would at least have gone home to do it, or gotten incredibly drunk, Ted muttered. Or both, Brondo cut in. Shut up, you three, Glorda said. Now, what, if anything, has gotten done? The gathered council looked around to each other and deferred to Joe. He had made the mistake of speaking first, so he had to continue. Well, nothing. We dedicated that diner and came back, but you weren't here. So we decided to wait for you. There was some silence then, while everyone considered this. Finally, Glorda spoke up. As you can see, Gene, our leadership council has an unmatched affection for my leadership. And he cut her off. Yes, so it would seem. Now, shall we go visit these butlers? They sound so much more interesting than these politicians. And your tour of the city gave me a decent grasp on the momentum of your society. But if there is another group here, I will need to visit them as well. Oh, well, they're robots, unaffected by the beacons. Do you really need to? Glorda was practically begging. I'm afraid so. They were developed by your people. They should be a good reflection of your creative potential, Gene said, getting more excited to meet the robots these people clearly didn't want him to. Well, they weren't really made by us, Blinkus said. They were made by Plum, and he's gone, and he never particularly fit in. Nevertheless, you kept them. They are now bound to you, and you to them. Oh, all right, whatever, let's go, Glorda said, sounding defeated. Wait, Joe shouted. Can I come? Sure, just leave your cultist ideas behind you, Glorda said, staring him down. Wait, cult? You still have cults in your society? Gene asked. To be concluded.
Ooh.
Ooh.
That got pretty bad at the end.
Maybe.
Yeah, he's gonna... Oh man, those robots are gonna tear poor Gene into small pieces. That's what they're gonna do. They're gonna tear him. They're gonna tear his arms and little legs off.
I don't want to guess what they're gonna do, because that'll pretty much guarantee that they won't do it then. But
I mean, I've already got most of it written, so.
Okay.
But
So you can't stop it from happening.
Not guessing is a good idea, though.
Like Oedipus Rex, those robots are gonna fuck their mother whether they want to or not.
Well, as always, you did a great job of making me think like, yeah, everything is gonna kind of go pretty easy. But then I found myself thinking at the same time as you wrote it in your story, I was like, oh, they did meet a lot of unsavory types out there, like, and I was like, yeah, the frickin' raccoon people that eat everything, and I was thinking especially those asshole space cops.
Yeah.
And they do have cults. And they do have crazy killer robots. And giant robots just covered in weapons.
The cults are a little more benign as things go compared to the giant robots. In my mind.
Yeah, but I mean, you know, cult is pretty much just another word for
this particular
religion.
Cult.
Yeah, they really only burn themselves.
And it sounds like Gene just is kind of opposed to people being allowed to have a religion. So, like, you still have cults?
Yeah, I mean, I guess. I don't know. I'm opposed to having religions, so, you know. I assume most reasonable people are.
Oh, yeah, no. Anybody listening to this show knows in their heart that
Oh yeah, that I'm
cults
right,
are-
and they should listen to me. Join my cult about hating religion.
Now that's a cult I could get into.
I like how Glorda keeps trying to, like, glorify, right? There we go. Yeah, glorifying her
Okay.
society. But, like, everything she says, every time she says something or opens her mouth to speak, it's always like, oh, and I fucked up and told him a thing that he didn't need to know. Right? It's like she could have just kept her goddamn mouth shut and he wouldn't know about the cults of the robots. But she's like, look at all this stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, it was Blinkus that first mentioned the robots. And well, no, it was maybe Ted in the previous episode mentioned them. I remember I had something. They warned him about the robots because they knew they were difficult to handle.
Yeah.
I did put something about that in the last one, but
I mean, I can understand that Gene took a bit to put it together, though. You know.
yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, even the twist of you know, having maybe too effective leadership has now put their entire civilization at risk. I definitely see the helpers as thinking like, no, you're not actually supposed to surpass our technology.
Yeah.
It's not looking good.
How are they gonna figure a way out of this one? Kind of what I wanted to set up for the last episode, so
Yeah.
I think it came through.
Excellent. Right, so
Yep.
now I gotta do my best Dragon Ball Z narrator voice.
Nope, you don't.
How are they gonna get
'Cause
out
I don't know
of this
what that
one?
means.
Tune in next time for fucking...
How many balls will he put on that guy's forehead this time? I don't know. Lots, apparently. That's what I assume that show is about.
He's collected a lot of them.
Just teabagging people all the time. But
We'll
anyways,
find out next time.
we'll be back in a week's time with the story from Todd
Yup.
about stuff and things. And like, comment, subscribe, or don't. It's
I
up to you.
will.
It's unimportant in the grand scheme of things. Bye.
Bye.
Bye.